Death Row with Death Row TV, and I'm back again with a very obscure movie review. And this is a review of a movie from 2002 called Interstate 60. Now, before I get started on this review, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell so you can see what other awesome, obscure movies that I review that will come up later. Now, before I get started, Interstate 60, made in 2002, directed and written by Bob Gale. And if you don't know who that is, Bob Gale is a co writer, co creator, and co producer of Back to the Future, which makes sense because some of the characters that are in this movie are from that other movie. So, from Back to the Future. For example, this movie stars James Marsden, Gary Oldman, as the two main characters. And then the love interest is played by Amy Smart. And then you go on and you have all these little tidbit characters that are A-list movie stars pretty much and throughout this whole. And this was so strange about this movie, to be honest with you. So I'll try to go through all the characters here real quick. I had to write them down because there were so many of them. Uh, James Marsden himself plays the character Neil Oliver. Gary Oldman plays the character O.W. Grant. You got Wayne Robson plays Tolbert, which is the guy with the stomach. Amy Jo Johnson, otherwise known as the Pink Ranger, plays Laura. Kurt Russell plays the sheriff of a small town in this movie called Captain Ives. And then Chris Cooper plays a character named Bob Cody. And Margaret plays another character, Mrs. James. And of course, I told you, Amy Smart, the love interest in this movie, plays a character named Lynn Linden. And those are the main characters of this movie from 2002 called Interstate 60, rated R, with a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes, almost 2 hours. And to me, it was worth every little bit of it. This was one of the strangest movies I've seen in a while, and very original in my opinion. And Bob Gale took a huge risk making this movie. And in my opinion, it pays off because just awesome. And of course, if you're gonna have him in there, Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd play two small minor characters in this movie. Michael J. Fox as Mr. Baker and Christopher Lloyd as Ray. So that's what I'm saying. There are so many big actors in this movie. Like I said, I had to write them down, and I still forgot those two. Back to the Future, which he was co-writer. So let's get started on this review. We start off in this little bar, and these two guys are basically at the bar. And by the way, it's James Marsden's character is the one narrating the entire thing throughout the movie. Neil Oliver is the one narrating, and he's talking about how these characters are developed, and he's talking about the legend of O.W. Grant, and he's basically saying he was, and this is, of course, this is Wayne Robson's character, Tolbert, and he's telling these two guys at a bar who O.W. Grant is, and he's like a leprechaun that immigrated over here from Ireland and got up with a Cheyenne Indian. So he has the magical powers of a leprechaun and the land from the Indians and Cheyenne, and he created this Interstate 60, kind of like this mythical land within America, where he will grant one wish. And O.W. Grant even tells you throughout the show that O.W. stands for One Wish Grant. Pretty sweet there, but I mean, it also means other things like Oscar Warren Grant, which they say later on in the show. It comes with different names throughout the whole thing. So basically, he's a leprechaun slash Cheyenne Indian, wears a red bow tie, and has dark red hair. So, and he's trying to explain to them, these two guys at a bar, talking about how no other culture all these cultures throughout the world have something of a genie that grants wishes in their culture, except for America. And this guy Tolbert's trying to explain to him, no, we have something like that. You just don't. We just ain't been here long enough to know who he is. Like America hasn't been America long enough to build the legend of O.W. Grant, which is an immortal leprechaun slash Indian. Not, I mean, I'm just telling you what the movie says. And so finally, he's talking to these two kids there, and then finally we get to meet O.W. Grant. First, we see Michael J. Fox. Let's see right here. And rightly so, they go up to the map and realize there's no such thing as Interstate 60, by the way. Of course, there's not. But anyway, so we meet our first character, which is Michael J. Fox. And O.W. Grant rides up, which is Gary Oldman here. Gary Oldman plays O.W. Grant. Anyway, so O.W. rides up on his bicycle, gets hit by the car door that Michael J. Fox is getting out of, or calls him Mr. Baker in this. And in the process of doing that, the bicycle gets run over by a dump truck that's going by. And in the process of that happening, it runs over Mr. Baker's phone as well. And he's all pissed off because he's got a meeting that he's got to be at 12, and it's like his lifeline and all this stuff. So he's having this huge fit. And then, and O.W. Grant, he's like just standing there. He's one of the red bow tie. And he's like, well, what can I do? What can I do? I wish this never happened. I wish this never happened. And so, are you sure that's what you want to wish for? And so he kind of gives him his wish that it never happened. And then it starts all over again. He's sitting on his car on his phone. And he gets out of the car. Let's see if I can catch it here. He gets out of the car this time around. O.W. Grant doesn't pull up next to his car and get hit by his car door. Instead, O.W. just stops behind his car and waits for him to get out and do his own thing. But when he does that, he's so preoccupied with his phone. That he gets hit by the dump truck that was supposed to only hit the bike and his phone instead. Right here. So you see, he's not paying attention because he's on his phone. And next thing you know, it's like, oops. So that's Michael J. Fox's character in an instant lasts about 5 minutes in this movie, but still cool to see him in this movie. Honestly, pretty cool. So then we cut to, finally, we see James Marsden's character, the main character, Neil Oliver, and he's the most indecisive person that you can meet. He doesn't know what to do with his life and where he wants to go. He's fixing to have a birthday party with his parents, and he knows his dad's going to give him something he doesn't want, or try to pressure on him going into college for being a lawyer when he doesn't want to be a lawyer. He wants to be an artist, that kind of thing. And as you can see in the background here, the picture on the wall is of a girl that he's been dreaming of this entire time. And he's kind of just like drawing her based on the dreams that he has of her. But he has this girlfriend that's behind him that he goes on to explain later that the girlfriend that he has now is a result of the girlfriend he had before. And because the girlfriend he had before was pushy and trying to make him make decisions all the time, whereas this girlfriend is not judgmental at all, but just psychoanalyzes him all the time instead. So he like went from one extreme to the next and nothing in between. Anyway, so here we go on, and he finally meets O.W. Grant at his birthday party or whatever, and O.W.'s like, blow out the candles and make a wish. And then O.W. gets him to tell everybody what his wish was. And his wish was just simply, I just want answers. So I just want some answers. And it intrigues O.W. Grant enough that he takes more interest in Neil. Whereas normally O.W. would just grant a wish and then go on and do his own thing. But when O.W. sees that Neil is a smart kid and a kid that wants to go his own way, he decides to take an interest in him. Anyway, they go outside, and his dad his dad gives him a key to a brand new. Let's see. Gives him a key to a brand new red BMW. And of course, his dad's rich and everything, and of course the girlfriend's loving it. I'm like, oh look, you got a brand new spanking red car, convertible red car, and pretty much the reason Neil doesn't like it is because it's basically a present. The dad got him a present that was basically for dad, and just trying to pass it off as something he was giving him, and like he doesn't really want it. He kind of wants to make his own way and that kind of deal. So he takes it reluctantly and not really knowing what to do with it. So, but as he's walking around the car, a bucket falls from the window and hits him in the head and puts him in a slight, small little coma. And the next day, his sister right here, which is played by Amy Stewart, I believe, she comes to visit, and she's talking. He's like, you need to speak up and tell Dad you don't want the car. This is something you would have bought yourself. Blah blah blah. And he doesn't really know how to take up for himself and just tell him outright. And his sister's pretty much like the only one that's on his side about everything when it comes to wanting to be an artist and this kind of all those other kind of things. Anyway, and enter Christopher Lloyd pretending to be the doctor. He shows up to give him a cognitive test of sorts. And he shows him the different cards and the suits and stuff. He's like, name the suit of each card as he, throws it up real quick. Not realizing that he's getting every single one of them wrong because the colors of the suit are different from what they normally are. And that's what he's trying to explain to Neil here is he said most, and he even goes on to explain like most kids get this right because they've never seen a pack of cards before. They're not preconditioned already to know what the suit colors are. Most adults get it wrong because they already know what the suit colors are supposed to be rather than looking closer to see what they really are. And that enhance the whole thing. Let's see if I can get a good. And then that's when the. And then Ray kind of give you an idea here. So he's going through the different spade, diamond, whatever, telling the different ones. And then he, if I can just. Anyway, the next doctor comes in and he's talking about, hey, what about the other doctor that just left with the trick cards and stuff like that? He's like, yeah, we don't have anybody that works here with the name of Ray and wears a green coat. Everybody here wears blue. And so Ray was, one of the, I guess magical things that's happening to Neil at this point because O.W. Grant has decided to take an interest in him. So then we go on and he's talking to his dad right here, and his dad's like, "Okay, I already got you an interview for this, this college, so you can go in there and get your law degree. It'd be easy peasy, the whole 9 yards. And he's like, you got to do it this year because the guy that I know at this college, he's going to retire and he won't be there next year. He basically just pushing his son in a direction that his son doesn't want to go. And at this moment, he's just kind of like taking it. He's like, well, okay, whatever. And then that night they have dinner with the friends or whatever, and things start happening. He starts seeing things like the fortune cookie. He swears the fortune cookie tells him like a certain date and something on there, and he shows it to his friends, and it doesn't say anything. So he's starting to see things, and then on top of that, like he sees this billboard right here with the girl that he's been painting and drawing this whole time, and basically giving him a message. There's another choice, and all this and stuff, and he can only see the billboard. Nobody else can see it, and so he keeps get these messages and he's like, holy shit. So like, yeah, he comes back the next day. Let's see if I get. Yeah, he comes back the next day to see that the sign's still there, and then gets somebody else to look at it. He's like, "Oh, you see that sign?" And the guy's like, "No, it's blank." Then he looks back and is like, "Oh shit, it is blank." He keeps doing that over and over again. So O.W. Grant is kind of like sending him on a thing. Anyway, he gets another message from a different billboard to dial a number, and then when he dials the number, it tells him you got a appointment at this time at this place or whatever on this floor, and the floor ends up being like the 13th floor of this building at 555 something. I can't remember the address. Anyway, he gets there and realizes there's not a 13th floor, but then he sees a billboard inside the elevator itself. It says push 10 plus 3 to get to the location on the 13th floor. So he has to push 10 and 3 to get to the 13th floor. And so he does that, and he ends up meeting Ray again, which is Christopher Lloyd. And Ray's got a package for him to deliver, and he's like, "You got to go to this specific town off of Interstate 60, and deliver this package to Robin Fields." Is the name on the package. And he signs a contract to deliver the package, and it's like, look at it as a way of getting away and doing your own thing for a little while. Take a vacation, take a trip, do what you gotta do. So yeah, so he kind of sends him on an adventure, you might say, and you might say Ray is related to the O.W. Grant, which is why he's pushing him towards O.W. And so he goes looking for Interstate 60, and he's following these billboards around. And like he finally sees this one billboard in the vicinity of Interstate 60. And apparently he's getting closer. It's the right choice, south. So he's heading south from where he is in St. Louis or whatever to find Interstate 60 on these back roads. And these billboards are kind of guiding him along, like, you're getting warmer, go south and whatever. Like he's getting closer to. And finally, he ends up meeting O.W. Grant on the road, picks him up, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to give you your birthday present." And he gives him the present, and it's a magic, it's a magic 8 ball that will give him yes or no answers or it said only ask it yes or no questions to get answers, and that was because his wish was to get answers, and so O.W. Grant gives him a magic 8 ball to get those answers. But it's more than that. O.W. has taken a more interest in him because he feels like he's lost and doesn't know what to do with his life, and he doesn't want to make the wrong choices. And O.W. begins to see him as a friend more than just a project, so to speak. So he climbs in the car with him to show him the way to get to Interstate 60. And he's like, you're not your typical rich kid and all this other stuff. You're not a kid that just wants gimme, gimme, gimme. You're wanting to go out and create on your own and figure out your own way and not have your parents give you everything like most people would expect them to be. And so that's kind of the whole ordeal. So they get further on, they're talking about different things. And they finally get to, Neil is trying to figure out what this Interstate 60 is. And of course, O.W. is giving like all kinds of different ideas of what it could be or what it couldn't be or what it might be. It might be in a whole nother dimension that was created there, that kind of thing. The new frontier, all this other stuff. Parallel dimension. We'll just go with that one, so to speak. So they end up in the little restaurant or whatever, and that's when you finally get to meet the first person along the road, which is played by Wayne Robson, Tolbert. And Tolbert's wish was that he's able to eat as much food as he wants and never get full. But then the problem became that he had to constantly eat all the time, and that would ended up costing him money all the time. So every time he goes into one of these restaurants, he orders a exorbitant amount of food, and people like this one sitting next to him doesn't think that he can eat it all, so they end up making bets with him, and that ends up paying for his food. So in a way, he figured out a way to keep going. So he orders all this food, and this guy bets like $300 to his $100 that he can't eat it all. And of course, he's got a bottomless pit stomach, or what he calls like a black hole of a stomach. And O.W. Grant's kind of like, that's the wish he made, and that's kind of what he's had to deal with for the rest of his life. And it's kind of a sad existence, really. And at this point, the sheriff, because Neil decided to also bet on Tolbert, knowing that he could eat all that food. And the sheriff sees that he kind of knew him somewhat, and ends up taking all of Neil's money in the process, because it was kind of an inside bet for him. And so now he has no money, and he's almost running out of gas. And of course, this is where OW's like, well, and they're having like this little conversation, running out of money and all this stuff. He's like, opportunities will present itself along Interstate 60. Don't worry, you'll figure that out. And he said, one of the things I've never had to worry about is I never had to have sexual relations. I never worried about sex, because I've had some weird accident happen to me when I was a kid, and my ding-a-ling got cut off. And what leads to this conversation, I do not know. But then the next person they see on the road is none other than Amy Jo Johnson, playing Laura, aka the Pink Ranger. And apparently her wish was to find the perfect F word. So, perfect. Yeah. And she just comes out and says it right in the movie too. And so yeah, he's and so she's like telling him, like, yeah, I've been looking for the perfect F word, and I don't want to say it out straight up like that, but and she sees Neil, and Neil's like a hunk to her, so she's like, I want to get in here and let you do what you want with me and all this stuff. And Neil's like thinking this over, because Neil's been with O.W. Grant for a little bit on the road. He's thinking to himself, well, why would I want to do that with you? I said, well, first of all, what number would I be? And she pulls out like this book. It's like, you would be number 2,461. It's like, but I got a feeling you're the one. You're the one. You're going to be the perfect one, whatever. And trying to convince him and all this stuff. And so she's like coming all over him and stuff. Like, come on, come on, come on, come on. So finally, he's like letting her out of the car, and she's getting pissed off. And he basically looks at her. He basically looks at her and like, look, I'm going to be out of all those men, 2,400 or whatever that you have met, have any of them turned you down? She's like, of course not. They'd be gay if they turned me down. And he said, well, I'm going to be the first one that turns you down, and I'm going to be the one that you will never know whether I was the perfect one or not. But you always think of me as number one now, because I was the one that turned you down. Playing my, she's like, I didn't sign up for this. This ain't the perfect F word. This is the perfect mind F word. Mind fuck. So she gets pissed off, gets out of the car, and of course she like comes on to OW. It's like, come on, OW, don't you want to do something? And then she gets in the back seat with him. She's like, go ahead. And she opens up his pants and realizes there ain't nothing there, and they just start laughing. So she gets out of the car and gets pissed off. So he's laughing because he already knows. So she gets back there and like unzips his pants, and they're like, and now they're laughing their butt off as she gets off and stomps off on the road. At this moment, they're getting close to a different town, and he decides to get out right before Banton, which is 23 miles to the left. And he decides to get out here. He's like, "Well, I'm going to leave you here and let you go on your way the rest of the way by yourself." And he's like, "I've, you know, put you on the right path. I think you'd be good by yourself now." And that's, he's like, and don't worry about the money. Opportunity will present itself at Interstate 60. Tell him go on your way. Anyway, so he ends up this he gets closer and closer to this town, and this older woman jumps out in front of his car, and she's like, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" Yeah, the older woman gets out, and that's when he leaves. Is when the older woman gets there, and the older woman gives him money, like gives him half of the $53 to help her go to Blanton or Banton. Well, I'm there. I got whiskey on my mind. Anyway, we go to Banton to pick up her son who stole her car to go to Banton to get high on Euphoria. So yeah, they get there, and they see all these signs about how Euphoria is addictive and all this stuff. How you shouldn't be taking Euphoria. Don't take Euphoria. And then they ride down through town, and they see these tent cities and stuff. All these people, these drug addicts and stuff in town. And like all these police officers, are like, be warned, it's highly addictive. Euphoria is illegal in Banton and all this stuff. And so they get there and they see all these people sweeping up the place and everything, and they're like, oh, what is going on here? All these people in the red suits just walking around. And so yeah, they get to this place, and they're like this raving place where everybody's going at night to get high and rave all night long. And they find her son, but her son doesn't want to leave. And here he is right here. They find her son. The son doesn't want to leave. He's high on Euphoria. He's staying here. This is perfect life. And she's like, well, I need my car. Like, take your car. I don't need your car anymore. I'm where I want to be or whatever. And he's of legal age to be in Banton and on Euphoria, which I think is like 16 or 18. I can't remember in this movie exactly. I'm not quite sure on the age. Anyway, so they get in trouble with the cops. The cops take them to the main captain, which is Kurt Russell himself, playing Captain Ives in this movie. Just incredible that they got him to do this. It's just so strange at the same time. Anyway, he goes on to explain to them, like, Banton had tried everything in his past to clean the town up as far as the drug use and that kind of thing. And they finally kind of gave in to the drug use and just decided, hey, we'll give them the drugs and they'll just stay here and clean up the town after hours and everything, and basically do odd jobs. It basically become free labor to the town. So when these people come in, when these kids or whatever come in and they get addicted to the drug, they become the free labor force for the entire town, working the grocery store, cleaning up places and everything. They become pretty much like zombified party goers. They live in these tent cities, and at night they're raving all night, and then during the day they're just going out there and just doing all the labor jobs that nobody else wants to do, and they're doing it all for free. Well, they're doing it for the drug Euphoria. He said, ever since we've done this, there's been zero crime. We ain't had to, do whatever. And he gives them an example of one of the girls working there in the department is cleaning. He's like, watch this. And he throws it on the ground, and she just picks it up and gets high off of it. And basically at this point, he tells the mother, he's like, you got three choices. You could move to the town, get your house, move into this town, and we can assign your son as a sort of your labor worker for your house, kind of like a payback for all the problems they caused you before, kind of work for you. You can, and then choice number two, you can go home and forget this ever happened. Take your car, it's an impound, go home. Or number three, and he throws her Euphoria. It looks like it's in a pixie stick of some sort. She can join the party. And then she finally ends up joining the party pretty much. She gives in. She wants to be with her son. And she takes the Euphoria and then like starts laughing and giggling and like, oh, I feel great. I feel it's the happiest I've ever been and all this other stuff. So she joins the party pretty much. And Kurt Russell, you know, Sergeant Ives or Captain Ives here, he tries to hand Neil $300 as a finder's fee for it's like you just increased our labor force. Tries to hand him $300, and Neil doesn't take the $300. He doesn't even get the other half of the $53 that he was supposed to get from the woman. He's like, but he takes up the offer on the hotel room to stay for the night, and then leaves the next day. He didn't want nothing to do with that. It felt like I guess he felt like it would be taking blood money, and so he did he. So like I said, Captain Ives offers him the $300 finder's fee for bringing that woman there and getting her addicted to the drug and making her part of the labor force now. But he turns down the $300 thinking it's not right to do that. And the next day he's on his way out and another opportunity presents itself on Interstate 60 in the form of Chris Cooper, which plays the character Bob Cody. And as you can see the sign here, he just wants a driver, 25 cents a mile plus $10 an hour. Straight up, he's like, hey, I'm not hitchhiking. I am making you my employer for this amount of time that I'm in the car with you. Therefore, I want to do this, this, and this. Like he has control over the radio and all this other stuff. Like he has all these stipulations along with the employment. And Neil's like, yeah, sure, man, I'm down for it. And so they get going down the road. And as you can see, he's starting seeing the more signs. It's like warmer and warmer, getting closer. Anyway, so Bob Cody has one of the, in my opinion, one of the best scenes in the movie where he's talking about the frontier, the final frontier, the frontier to go further and further out west. Is when we ran out of frontier to settle, and just all the nuts ended up in California when you run out of westward land to go to. And he has this thing, say what you mean what you say, and all this stuff. And you come to find out later in this, when they stop to get gas here, he sees a guy with a sign that says will work for food, and he offers the guy an apple if he would just wash the window of the car. And the guy won't do it. It's like, I don't want that food to wash your car. I said, well, why do you have a sign that says will work for food? And the guy gets pissed off finally. It's like, don't mess with me, man. And that's when that's when Bob Cody, he opens up his jacket or whatever and shows him. It's like, you don't want to mess with me, man. He's got a bomb underneath his jacket. It's 10-second set. He's like, man, I'm ready to go. And he tells him, I got lung cancer. I don't have anything left to live for, and all this other stuff. I care less. And I'm not going to take a lie anymore, and all this other stuff. So they get back in the car, and Bob Cody tells him his whole reasoning behind why he's on Interstate 60. And it's because he was a marketer who sold lies. And he said one of those lies finally got a kid killed. And he promised himself he would never tell a lie from then on, and he would never put up with somebody else's lies either. And from then on, he was like, you say what you mean what you say. And he says, not only that, I am terminal with lung cancer, and all this stuff. So when somebody's lying, I call them out on it, and then at first, Neil was kind of scared of him after the whole bomb incident, and he's like, I don't know if I want to keep this guy in the car, but then Bob Cody kind of settles him down with the explanations and everything. He's like, I'm out here for a reason. He said, this is a frontier that hasn't been explored yet, and I'm exploring it in my own way. And so he finally gets him settled back down. He's not going to really do anything. He pays Neil when he gets to the destination. And then when they get to the destination just happens to be close to where Ann-Margret is in the Museum of Art Fraud. As you can see here, see if I can get it. And Ann-Margret is playing a character named Miss James. And Miss James, what she does, as you can see here, and she gets Neil in on the prank pretty much right here. She's like, "Oh, you must be Douglas," and Neil's like, "I don't know who this woman is or why she's calling me Douglas," and she's like, "Just go along with it, just go along with it," and because she's like, "You're my nephew Douglas, just go with that, go with a prank." So they lead all these art critics into this room where all this fine art is, and this is all the real art or whatever. These are art made by the real artist and everything. And what happens is, after the critics leave, they take the real art out of the frames, put it in a different room, and then she tells those same critics that this art was created by her nephew Douglas, which is Neil in this case, in the last week or so as replicas, and they are for sale for $350 a piece. That is the thing. And so when the and Neil is having a ball out of listening to these critics just rip these paintings up and down as if he was the one that painted them, when in reality the paintings were actually the real paintings from the real artist. And he's sitting there telling these critics like, "Yeah, I agree with you. I could have done better." And these critics are like, "Yeah, this is sloppy right here. This doesn't look right. This painting has no soul or whatever." And it was the exact same paintings they saw in a different room, just in a frame. And so that's why it's called the Museum of Art Fraud. It's really the frauds on the critics. And they're, I don't know, it's pretty funny in my opinion. And yeah, so that was the whole ordeal. And apparently she goes to explain, to Douglas or Neil why she does what she does. It was her late husband's idea to do this as a way to mess with folks. It's like he has all this art is the real art, and we tell people when we put it in this room that it's $350, and you know what? I haven't sold one painting because these uptight critics are not going to buy copies, and they will criticize a copy even though it's not a copy. But anyway, so yeah, that's pretty funny. So finally, he ends up in this fork in the road hotel area, and he can go right to Moorlaw, which is where the girl of his dreams and the one he's been painting and drawing and everything is, or he can go on to Danver, which is where he's got to deliver the package, which is 158 miles. And he's like, "Man, I got time. I can go to Moorlaw and get the girl, and then go on to Danver." So that's what he decides to do, but he's not realizing the reason it's called Moorlaw is because Moorlaw is a town that is run by lawyers. And the lawyers basically hold people hostage while they're waiting trial. And while they're waiting for their trial to start, they basically like write them up for every little thing they can possibly do, even stuff that's just made up. Like Neil gets pulled over for almost accidentally running over a cat that doesn't even exist, that belongs to the judge that doesn't even own a cat. But they do it anyway, and so he's put in jail until he can go on trial. And this is his lawyer that he ends up hiring. And she's like, well, you need a character witness. Well, you need to get your, I can subpoena your parents. And it's like, why would I want to subpoena my parents? Because then when they come here, wouldn't they just be arrested too? And she's like, well, yeah, but it's still, it's a huge scheme. He's like, yeah, but this town, needs cases so it can survive. And it's like, but in the meantime, you can go work at the grocery store or whatever nearby. Do all those miscellaneous things that we don't do while you wait for your trial to start, and you can pay me off in the meantime with while working at the grocery store and being a plumber or all this other things that we refuse to do ourselves if we were just like a town full of lawyers. I mean, it was nuts. And so yeah, he gets locked up, and then when he's locked up, he's looking out his jail cell, and he sees the girl of his dreams, the one he's been painting this whole time, across the way in another jail cell. Apparently, she got stuck there as well as he did. So now he's trying to figure out, well, how do I get out of here? And finally, he comes up with a great idea. He's like, I know a character witness that's nearby, and he gets Mr. Bob Cody to come in and be a character witness. And then the first thing that happens, he gets his lawyer to ask him, like, what's the trumped up charge that you got me here for? And then that's when Bob Cody gets pissed off. He's like, you mean to tell me all these charges are a lie? And then he goes on to, it's like, no, 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 sir. And he gets on to the judge. It's like, Judge, you ain't going to do this. You're going to answer my questions. You're going to answer them now. Now, he's getting on to everybody because he pulls out the bomb again because they try to arrest him and throw him in jail. Bob Cody pulls out the bomb again. Like, no, you're not. You're going to do what I say. And he finally he gets the judges and all the lawyers to sign a contract that they will no longer do this to people when they come through the town. And they made it legal and had posted all over town and everything else. He's like, I hereby dismiss and declare unconditional amnesty to every person that has been locked up in this town. And he's so funny. You see Bob Cody just standing behind him, making sure he reads it off to everybody. And so, yeah, Mr. Bob Cody comes to the rescue for him. And of course, he gets her out as well. And like they do this whole wind in the hair thing as she's coming out of the jail. So, yeah, so she gets to him, and she's talking like a straight up a skank or whatever. Like, what you doing, yo? It basically, she was just doing it as a test to see if he would like her no matter what. And she's like, I don't, that was a test to see if he would just like me for the way I look rather than, be like, he says guys are so eager to score points on me that they just look past the way I'm talking and try to act like that they don't really care. When and he's like, no, I do care. He's like, I'm glad you do care because otherwise you would have failed the test or whatever. And yeah, so they finally get out of there. She doesn't have a car because she had to sell her car to pay for her lawyer, so she's going to hitch a ride with him out of Morlaw. And so they're talking with each other, and they realize they have almost everything in common. And the whole reason she's on Interstate 60 is because she wished for the Prince Charming, the Mr. Right, and all this other stuff. What you see, and she's like, what can I say? I'm a romantic. I wanted the perfect. I wanted to find, the perfect man for me or whatever. And she's like, well, you definitely will do. Because you're a lot cuter than I thought you would be. And all this other stuff. So yeah, they get the hell out of there in the car. And then when they make it back to that fork in the road place, they decide, Denver can wait till tomorrow. And then that night, they of course get it on at the Fork in the Road Hotel, as you can see here. He creates a painting of the Fork in the Road Hotel. He didn't even sleep when he was in the motel. So he creates this painting of the motel that they're staying in. and it's pretty cool. I would like to actually have this myself. If they know anybody that has this painting or a print of this, let me know. I like it. Anyway, kind of my style here. Anyway, they, in the morning, the eight ball is telling them that Lynn can't go with them. And I forgot, like, Amy Smart is the actor playing Lynn Linden. And the eight ball is telling that Lynn's got to stay behind at the hotel while he goes forward into Denver or whatever. And this is his final test on Interstate 60, pretty much. And so he finally leaves her behind to go on and deliver the package and see. And he promises her that he'll come back and get her. But then things go sour when there's this killer on the loose. Now, throughout the whole movie, they kind of insinuate there's a killer somewhere on this road in Interstate 60, and he's not sure who it is and all this stuff. And then, like, the eight ball is giving him mixed messages about if it's him or not, if he's the accused killer or whatever. And finally, he decides to make a decision. He decides to ditch the car that he's in and run it off the road or whatever, because the car that the police officers are looking for is like a red convertible car with with white paint splashed on it. And at the gas station where he was getting gas, these people rode by in a Jeep and throw white paint on the back of his car, making him look like the killer. So, yeah, he decides, all right, I didn't even like this car anyway. This wasn't really a gift for me. This was really more a gift for my dad. So he was like, I'm going to ditch this damn thing. So, yeah, he takes it off road to the edge of a cliff and just, rolls it off the edge of a cliff. He's like, I never really liked this car anyway. This wasn't even a gift for me. So, yeah. But then he sees another red car on the road, and it looks just like his, and it hits a police barricade, blows up, the person inside dies, and the whole 9 yards. And he realizes the police caught who they were looking for anyway, and it wasn't him. But at the same time, O.W. Grant had told him early on in the movie, like, Interstate 60 is inevitable variations of things that could happen. So there's like past, present, future can all mix together and blend. You don't ever know what's going to happen, yet everything happens because it's inevitable. So, yeah. So he sees this, and then he asks, like, the cops, like, hey, well, who was that guy? Is like some kid that went crazy, killed his dad because, his dad made him be a lawyer and all that stuff. It sounds like something that could happen to him in the future, so to speak. And so, yeah, he killed his dad and he was on the run. So anyway, he basically just hitchhikes his way to the Rainbow Club, which is where he's taking the package right here. So he has to hitchhike his way through the rest of the way here to the Rainbow Club to deliver the package that he originally signed a contract with Ray to deliver. And he gets there, and guess who's there? But none other than Ray and O.W. Grant. And so there you go, Ray and O.W. Grant. He's like, well, why am I delivering a package that you wanted me to deliver to you? Oh, it's not for me. And it ends up being for O.W. Grant. And if you remember at the very beginning of the movie, when O.W. Grant hit Mr. Baker's car and his bike and fell off, he cracked the jaw off the pipe of his. The pipe is shaped like a monkey head, and the jaw cracked on it and popped off, so he damaged his pipe. And so, yeah, Neil deliver him a new pipe. As you can see here. It's pretty funny. But the jaw is not messed up now. Kind of cool. I wonder if there really is a pipe like that, though. Be kind of cool to see one in person. Anyway, so OW gets his new pipe and he starts smoking the green smoke and then knocks out Neil, makes him pass out. And he wakes up back in the back in the hospital like he was in a concussion, like he was in a coma this whole time and just dreaming this thing. But then he sees the card sitting on his flowers, and it's a seven of spades, or as you can see, the spades is not black; it's red. And he sees the back of the card, and it's complimented of the Rainbow Club, where Ray and O.W. Grant was. So supposedly he woke up from a coma, but he obviously thinks it's all real because of that card. And finally, he confronts his dad. Finally, he has this conversation that you saw earlier in the movie, but this time he approaches it differently. He tells his dad that he doesn't want the car and all this stuff, and his dad's like, "Well, that kind of offends me that you don't want the car." And he finally says, "Well, Dad, how would you feel if I got you an easel and some paints for your birthday? And you don't even paint, and you have no interest in trying to paint and all this other stuff, but I got you one anyway because it's what I would want, but I wanted to give it, and that kind of thing." And his dad's like, "Man, I never thought of it that way." Well, what you gonna do? And he tells his dad, "Look, I'm gonna pursue my art." And that's when his sister comes in behind him and tells him like, "Hey, one of your pieces has been, have been put up in the gallery or whatever, and it's winning or whatever." And he gets to the gallery and he sees Lynn Linden, and they instantly have a connection because she's like, "Oh my gosh, like deja vu. I've seen you somewhere before." Like she doesn't remember the events of Interstate 40 as much as he does, but they still have that instant connection from their time at Interstate 40. And then she's over the moon with the painting that he did and all this stuff, and she's like, it's a pretty good moment, to be honest with you. And it was the exact painting that he did with her in the room at that Fork in the Road hotel. And it's just funny that the painting brings them two together in the real world as well as it did in the Interstate 40 parallel universe, whatever you want to call it, world. O.W. Grant's world. And then, of course, O.W. shows up again. It's like, I took the liberty of entering the art into the contest for you because I wanted you to. He wanted him to do well and finally achieve something like he wanted to achieve. And so O.W. Grant calls himself Conrad at this juncture, and yeah, so that's pretty much. O.W. goes over to the sister and is talking to the sister and is like, "Yeah, those two are going to do just fine or whatever." And the sister's like, "How do you know?" And then O.W. Grant's like, "Don't you have a birthday coming up?" And she's like, "Well, how do you know that?" He's like, "Don't forget to make a wish." And then he starts smoking on that pipe again. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. I mean, that's if I had to give this movie a rating, it's a hard one for me. I've watched this a couple times now just to get prepared for this review because there's so much that goes on in this movie, and it's like I said, it's a little bit less than 2 hours, but it's pretty long. And I almost spent an hour talking about it in this review. So I mean, there's a lot goes on in this movie, and there's stuff I caught the second time watching that I didn't see the first time. So overall, I got to give this movie a 4 stars out of 5. I've just really enjoyed this movie. It's so different from anything I've watched recently or in the past, to be honest with you. So just for that alone, I'm just going to give it a 4 out of 5. So, and that's my review. That is Death Row out.